You are listening to Book Clips, a mini podcast in which authors or narrators do readings from novels. Check out the show notes for the synopsis and buy links for this book.
This is Jane Alden, and I'm reading from my debut novel, Across a Crowded Room, from Desert Palm Press. It's Christmastime, 1950, in the affluent Manhattan suburb of New Canaan, Connecticut. Bennie Grant is separated from her husband and battling for joint custody of their young daughter. It's complicated by Will's meddling mother, Bennie's confessed past affair with her best friend, Alice, and Will's determination to keep her in the marriage at any cost. What could make things more complicated? Bennie meets a charismatic woman, Laura, to whom she is irresistibly attracted. In this scene, Bennie and Alice meet for a drink. The Chesterfield Inn dated back to Revolutionary War times, when it was built as a stagecoach stop between Boston and New York. On the wide wooden front porch, Bennie stomped the snow off her boots and entered the tall double doors. The bar was almost empty at this early hour, with only a lone bartender in a white apron drying glasses. Alice had arrived before her and had already started on a martini. When Alice noticed Bennie standing in the doorway, her face lit up, and she rushed over to embrace her. Bennie could smell the subtle, familiar scent of the expensive perfume Alice had used for years. It took her back to times she and Alice shared, especially during their short, intimate affair a year before. Bennie held the embrace longer than usual, enjoying the feel of Alice's sturdy body and the muscles of her strong back through her tweed suit coat. Alice slowly broke the embrace and held Bennie at arm's length, searching her face. "That was awfully nice, but I've a feeling that hug had more to do with what's going on with Will than with me. What is it? What has he done now?" "Nothing more. It's just that I went to see Livy last night, and she broke my heart, asking questions about the reality of what I'm doing to her life. Maybe Will's right. Maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. And maybe it's as Olivia says, a wife and mother must yield to responsibilities and duties." Alice drew Bennie to a booth in the corner. "Now you listen to me, Bennie. Olivia Grant has never done one thing in her life that she didn't find in her own best interest, including trying to make you into a copy of her, and she'll do the same with Livy if she can. Of course it's not ideal that you don't have Livy all the time, that you only have her half-time, but that time with you will provide a balance so that Livy can choose for herself how she wants to be in the world." "You're right. I can always count on you, Alice, as the voice of reason." Bennie patted Alice's hand. "But we're supposed to be talking about your news. Let me get you a drink first." Once they were settled with their cocktails, Alice sipped hers and paused for a moment. "I'm thinking of taking a trip. Quite a long trip, actually, out to California. The fact is, I'm planning to move there." She rushed on, playing with the olive in her martini and not looking at Bennie. "You remember my college roommate, Bev, right?" Bennie nodded her head. "She's the architect." "Yes, she's making quite a name for herself in San Francisco. They've hired her to design the new ballet hall, and she's asked me to come out and live with her. She has a beautiful big Victorian in Pacific Heights overlooking the bay." Alice paused to take a breath. Bennie's instinct was to grab the sleeve of Alice's jacket and beg her not to go, not now. In that moment, she realized how much she depended on Alice's constant support, and at the same time how she took for granted that Alice would always be there with a shoulder to cry on. But she had no rational right to expect it. That seems lovely, such an adventure, she forced herself to say. You make it sound as though I'm headed out to the gold rush. They have come quite a way in 100 years. Alice turned away and shook her head. I'd hoped for a different reaction. In my fantasy, my imminent leaving brought you to your senses about us, and you grabbed me and demanded I not go. Bennie blushed at how close her internal reaction had been to Alice's hope. She grabbed Alice's sleeve, almost knocking her drink over. Oh, Alice, you are so dear to me and the only person in the world I can talk to. You've kept me sane through all this, and I can hardly bear to think you'll be gone. You're my closest friend, more than a friend. You may be satisfied with that, but it's a real struggle for me. You certainly wanted more when we were together. I was so desperately unhappy and so starved for a connection. And you don't still want that? Is it so easy for you to turn off your feelings for me? The physical part of it, yes, I can turn that off. I don't believe that. Remember me? I was there. That first time and all the times we were together. I've never been with anyone more responsive. If I thought there was any way we could go back and that you just need time. Bennie looked at her hands and shook her head. That's not ever going to happen again, Alice. Alice dropped her face into her hands and raked her fingers through her hair. My God, I'm on the edge of becoming pathetic here. The truth is that through all these months of being just friends, I've been angling for more. I wasn't even serious about California, but now I'll go. So you haven't told Bev yet you'll come? Bennie tried to keep desperate hopefulness out of her voice. Not in so many words, but I've probably led her on. I haven't been quite honest with her either about my feelings for you. When will you leave? Bennie asked. I've got some financial things to finish up. I need to make sure Mother's going to be okay. Maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. 2 or 3 weeks? So soon? This has been underway for a while, and Bev is anxious for me to come before she starts this new project in earnest. I might drive and take my time, so that will add a week or 10 days. Alice's face brightened. Why don't you come with me? We can make a sightseeing trip of it. Then you can fly back from San Francisco. You could spend some time in Portland. You haven't seen your father in a while, right? Bennie shook her head. Let me think about it, but I'm sure having me along isn't what Bev has in mind. Bennie found the idea of leaving everything behind tempting. Alice hesitated. You're right. But you let me handle that. You can stay at the Mark Hopkins if you'll be more comfortable. I don't think so, but I'll think about it. Good. Alice drained the rest of her martini and ate the olive. I'll take that as a maybe. At least there's a chance. Now tell me all about your dinner date with the very impressive Mrs. Claiborne. Isn't that what you called her? I do find her impressive, but before I tell you, you tell me. You left me dangling on the phone the other night about where you've met her and under what circumstances. Tell me your story of meeting her before I tell you about our evening. I met her at a dinner party in Manhattan, the Upper East Side, given by 2 women I know only slightly. They're theater people, an actress and a set designer, quite a chic group of a dozen or so women. I was a little out of place, but you know me. I tend to enter a room thinking that everyone there is dying to get to know me. Bennie smiled as she reached across the table and patted her friend's hand. Well, Alice said, after the hostesses had served several rounds of cocktails, it was obvious that they were stalling dinner. But we were all having a good time by then, so no harm. Finally, the guest we'd been waiting for, Madame Claiborne, as it turned out, arrived with a young woman in tow. The hostesses were discreet about it, but they had to hustle to make sure there was a seat at the table for the unexpected guest. Mrs. Claiborne introduced her as her design assistant, but you wouldn't know that from the conversation. The girl hardly said a word all evening. That's why I made the admittedly catty remark to you on the phone the other night about her liking a different type, young and quiet. That's it. So how was your dinner with Mrs. Claiborne? It was a success. She plans to make a gift to the drama department at school. That's my department. So mission accomplished as far as Mother Barry, the headmistress, is concerned. We had dinner at her weekend house in the countryside. It's just 5 minutes from here. It was the two of us. No young, quiet girl around that I could tell, nor any husband in sight. Mother Barry told me she's married to a Broadway producer. She designed the house herself, Bennie said, as she described the dramatic and remarkable building. She wanted her friend to be as impressed with Laura as she was. She's a good listener. I think I did most of the talking. By the end of the evening, she certainly knew more about me than I did about her. I told her about my directing ambitions. She asked why I'm teaching at Mary Bradford's, and I told her about Will and Livy. Then she drove me back to school. So, did she make a pass at you? Alice, the way your mind works. Think about it. You might have expected something, although you can be a bit clueless about your impact on other people. Be careful, Bennie. Alice looked around the room that was filling with the dinner crowd. She pulled on her gloves and gathered her coat and purse. Think about the trip to California. If you decide against it, I might fly out there after all, get things moving. I'll let you know. Bennie took Alice's hand, pulling off the glove her friend had put on to touch her skin. Now, I could easily become pathetic. Write me, please. I will, or I'll certainly call. Alice entwined their fingers. Take care of yourself, Bennie, and promise you'll be smart about Laura Claiborne. I don't have any reason to expect I'll hear from her again, except through her interest in the school. This is Jane Alden. I've been reading from my novel Across a Crowded Room from Desert Palm Press.
You have been listening to Book Clips. Check out the show notes for the synopsis and buy links for this book. If you are interested in showcasing your novel, then check out the show notes for more information.